Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Yellow Rose Canyon, your premier event space and campground nestled in the piney woods of East Texas. With cabins and RV sites available, Yellow Rose Canyon is perfect for your next event, no matter the size. A wedding, reunion, festival, you name it. Check it all out at yellowrosecanyon.com. All right, welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. Look, it's me, Oliver Peck. I'm here again. Thanks for tuning in. And also want to give a special shout out. Thanks to everybody for subscribing and liking and commenting. We appreciate it. We also want to thank everybody that sends in questions to the Gmail. As always, I like to start the show out with answering a few questions from the people on the Gmail. So if you want to ask me anything you got, send it over to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Look forward to seeing what y'all got for me. Today's episode is with my good buddy, Greg Christian, tattooer from Cleveland, Ohio. He is, of the last decade or so, he's one of the tattooers that I travel the most with and do a lot of shows with. And we do a lot of motorcycle shit together and spend a lot of time on the road together. So he was in Dallas this weekend. We went to a tattoo convention in San Angelo, West Texas, True Front Brothers. It was a weekend and we made it through it. And we did some tats and we had a great time. And but before we went out, got to sit down with Greg and hammer it out here on the couch. And then we went and did the convention, and now I'm back and I'm recording the intro. So stay tuned for the interview with Greg Christian. And we're going to start off today. I got a question from Evan H. I'm getting some good listener comments and emails here, so people are paying attention. And I'm finding some common ground with some people. So thank you, Evan, for chiming in. He says, "Hello, Oliver. I wanted to start off by saying #Garth Brooks sucks." Goddamn right, Evan. Goddamn right. I'm a huge fan of yours ever since Ink Master and now your podcast. Keep doing your thing. I have many questions for you, but for now, I will ask one cool question. My uncle told me he grew up with you and that you were good friends. My question is, do you actually remember him? His name is Philip Pollard from Fort Worth, Texas. And he ends the message with #Taylor Swift is trash. So, I mean, me and Evan, eye to eye here. Thank you so much, Evan H. Really, I mean, your question, pretty simple question. I really chose this email just because your choice of hashtags, and I hope everybody out there can get into this hot new trend of hashtagging things. I've recently jumped on this new trend, and it's great. Ones I recommend the most are Taylor Swift sucks, Beyonce sucks, Justin Bieber sucks, Garth Brooks sucks. Those are probably the most common trending hashtags on the internet today, I would say. That's probably the hot topic that most people are jumping on board with. I mean, so it's kind of like the majority opinion of most people that have any common sense. They probably think all those people suck. So, thank you. Yes. Philip Pollard from Fort Worth. I grew up in Fort Worth, went to Southwest High School. I know Philip. I have not seen Philip in a long time. So, are we still good friends? I don't know. Could we still be friends? Anything's possible. Shout out to Philip, and thank you, Evan. Next question. See what we got here. Simple question here. Sam P says, "Hey Oliver, what's the most unusual or interesting location you've tattooed somebody? Back seat of a '69 Camaro, airplane bathroom? ? And what is the most unusual or interesting location where you have been tattooed? Peak of Mount Everest? Bottom of the ocean? Who knows? Loving the show, man. Sam. All right. Never been to Everest, never been to the bottom of the ocean, but I've been all over the world. and tattooed a lot of people in some precarious situations. But the best is I received a tattoo and gave a tattoo while driving an RV full of people down the highway at 70 plus miles an hour. And we had a group of people. We were partying on the RV. We were going from town to town, and we decided, we're going to set up and tattoo each other. At the time, my buddy Chris Erickson was driving. And so I sat in between the front seats and tattooed on his arm while he was driving down the road. That was fun. And then I got tattooed by Chris Erickson while he was driving. He was working the gas and brake with his feet, while I was working the foot pedal with my foot. And then I was steering the RV with my arm while he was tattooing my other arm. So I'm going down the road, steering the RV. He's got my arm in his lap. He's got the tattoo machine. He's gas and braking in the thing. And I got my foot pedal on the foot switch. And and he's tattooing my arm while we're going down the road. And it was great. We survived. We got sweet tats. I would say they're not technically the best tattoos, but they are amazing tattoos. We all decided to get the letters MIH tattooed on us. So a whole group of us all got MIH, which stands for Make It Happen. And sometimes you're in a situation. I'm not going to go into the long story of why we made it happen, but let me just tell you this. We did make it happen. One of the things we made happen was getting this tattoo, but the tattoo was to commemorate the previous things that we had made happen on this journey. And just some crazy shit that happened, and shit comes up, and sometimes you think that, oh, well, we could do this, but nah, probably not. Or I wish we could do this, but we can't. Let me tell you what, you can make it happen. You got to have that MIH mentality. You got to be able to just, whatever's coming up, whatever you dream up, whatever you think of, you can make it happen. Kind of goes along with the LTD, the living the dream. But to live the dream, you got to make it happen. So the MIH and the LTD, they kind of go together. So there's your answer, Sam. 70 plus mile an hour down the highway, recklessly driving a 40-foot RV with a trailer. And I think everybody involved in this scenario, other than me and Chris Erickson, were intoxicating on some sort of substance, whether it be liquid or otherwise. Let's just say we were having a good time. All right, who's next? This looks like it's from a person named Christone1. Christone1. We're just going to call you Chris. All right, Chris says, love the podcast. Just started listening a few weeks ago. Quickly catching up on a lot of other episodes. What is your all-time dream car, truck, or van? And at the end of this message says, hashtag Lucero, which I love. And then also, hashtag fuck Garth Brooks. Again, this is the reason I chose these. This is the reason I chose these questions to answer. The solidarity that I'm feeling with my listeners is strong right now. So I do have a lot of friends that like Garth Brooks, but I blame it on their age. They're just young. They're young, and when they were young, Garth Brooks was, the hot shit or whatever. But for the older people out there, we remember when country music was real country music, and then there was a turn. And most people will agree that in the early 2000s to now, country music, mainstream country music, has completely gone to shit. Now, for us older people, we can look back in time and see when that happened. We can see the beginning of that. And the beginning of that, George Strait, Garth Brooks, which led into Mr. Cyrus, and then it rapidly went downhill from there. But the George Strait and Garth Brooks, they were definitely the first of the new country which led us down this road. And I'm not saying that they're the worst, as they're not as bad as what's going on now, but they're the ones that exited and took a left turn and brought us straight to hell where we are now. So, hashtag fuck Art Brooks. As to answer your other question, dream car. Ever since I was a kid, I was always dreamed about having an early 60s Corvette, specifically a 60, 61, or 62. Depending on different time frames, I've kind of like, there's subtle differences between those 3 years, and I've kind of landed on the 62 being the one. And every once in a while, I consider just selling a ton of shit and just getting a 62 Corvette. Who knows if that'll ever happen? I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have already happened. I might have missed the boat. I could have. Now the 62 Corvette is astronomically priced. Very hard to obtain one these days, but I'm not going to give up hope. Who knows? Thank you, Chris. All right, this question for last. This is from Larry Hatfield. Larry Hatfield says, "Hey, y'all, this might be slightly controversial here, but I'm just going to respond because it got brought to my attention, and I'm going to respond. Hey, Oliver, loving the podcast. I recently heard an interview with Sailor Eddie. Now, Larry Hatfield wrote this email. I did not. This is not me saying this, but it says in parentheses. It says the lame grandson." Not his legendary grandfather. So there's a guy named Sailor Eddie who is the predecessor of a previous Sailor Eddie, and he's talking about the later Sailor Eddie, not talking about the legendary grandfather Sailor Eddie. And apparently, he says, heard an interview with Sailor Eddie, not the lame grandson, that he challenged me to a boxing match, but you declined the fight. Is there any truth to that, or in any way would you accept it? And finally, shut that guy up. I think a lot of people would be happy to see that dork, and mind you, this is what he's saying here. He says, I think a lot of people would be happy to see that dork be humbled for once in his life. Also, there's a great opportunity for a Rocky-style training montage you could do. Keep being rad, Larry Hatfield. The one part about this whole thing I'm interested in is the montage. I love a montage. I would love to film a montage, whether it be boxing or any other sort of montage. You know, I love it at the end of some comedy movies when they just throw a montage in. That's always great. And some people say that a montage will like cheapen a cinematic experience, but I don't think so. I love the montage. I think, you know, especially in an epic story, when you're traversing many years, you can like throw that montage in to show that the passage of time, you know, because, you know, like the epic Rocky montage is weeks and weeks of training, and it was like 2 minutes of the movie, but you get that feeling. So, just to address this question here, I know who Sailor Eddie is. I'm almost positive. I'm pretty bad with memory, guys. But I'm almost positive I've met Sailor Eddie at some point in my life. At least one of them. At least some of them. Maybe there's more than one. But I do not recall ever being challenged to a boxing match. If I can look back in my archives and ask some people that might remember better than me if I was ever challenged. I mean, I do know one specific person I would ask, but I don't remember being challenged. But if I was challenged to a boxing match, yes, I would decline. For a very simple reason. I'm not a boxer. I don't want to be a boxer. I'm not a fighter. I don't want to be a fighter. Challenge me to something else. Challenge me to a game of cornhole. Maybe I win, maybe I lose. Challenge me to like how much I can travel and do the shitload of tattoos all over the country for 30 goddamn years, then yes, I'll take that challenge because I've been doing it. I don't know how much you're fucking tattooing over there, or whoever you may or may not be, but I'm tattooing a shitload, and I always have, and I've never stopped, and I've never slowed down, and that's how it is. This guy definitely has a beef with me. I've heard a few friends tell me that this guy has a beef with me. I'm not going to call out these friends, and I'm not going to put them on the spot. But some people that know him, which I'm saying this is other people's words, not my own, other people that know him have said, this guy, he thinks he's mad at you. He thinks you suck, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, don't worry about it. He sucks anyway. And I'm like, well, maybe we both suck. Who knows? For any Sailor Eddie fans out there, keep being Sailor Eddie fans. Whatever it is, do whatever you want to do. You want to come over here and listen to What in the Duck podcast and hear me talk shit about shit, then that's what we're doing. But yeah, Sailor Eddie, if you do have some challenge for me or something, I'm definitely not going to try to fight. That seems like the dumbest thing for me because I do tattoos and my hands already hurt. So punching a bunch of things sounds like the worst idea for a tattooer. They did have a tattoo boxing series that my buddy Keith Underwood put on for a while. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like a smart thing. I mean, I was a part of it and I was announced and everything. And I always thought it was fun. It was cool to watch people fucking get in the boxing ring. But me personally punching things, that does not sound good. I typically try not to punch anything ever. Like when I fall down, I like fall on my face before I fall on my hand. I'd like dive to the body and take my hands out of the way. Plenty of broken fingers and bones from skateboarding and BMXing and motorcycles over the years. The hands, I don't want to hurt my hands. It's the worst. Definitely rather have a broken leg or a rib or anything. So that's my answer to that. Thank you, Larry, for your question. My best regards to Sailor Eddie. I hope you're doing good out there, and just try to have a great day. Let's keep it positive and keep on moving. So that being said, we are now to the portion of the show where we're gonna click, edit up, and the next thing you'll see is me and Greg Christian sitting here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. Sharing's good. Sharing is caring. All right, guys, stay tuned. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Dream Machines of Texas. All of your used motorcycle wants and needs all in one place at dreammachinesoftexas.com. They have multiple locations, large inventory, and get new bikes in every week. Knowledgeable staff with great service, financing and extended warranty options available. They also have a complete service garage, so every bike is gone through and brought up to speed before you hit the road. I've bought more than a few bikes from Dream Machines over the years, and I could not be more satisfied. I have also had friends from all over the country buy bikes because they couldn't find a better deal anywhere. You can buy a bike and have it shipped to you anywhere in the U.S. Why buy a brand new bike with that brand new high price when you can get a like-new bike with that dream deal you've been looking for? Go to dreammachinesoftexas.com and get a bike and get your ass on the road. And Audra's phone is going to silent mode and we are ready to go. Welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and today I'm here in the booth with my good buddy, Greg Christian, who just flew in this morning. Welcome.
Glad to be here, bud.
Yeah, man. Most of you who follow me on the internets have seen me side by side with this man quite a bit. We traveled quite a bit together over the last handful of years. Probably, I'm not good with that whole time memory thing, but the last maybe 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
Last 10 years, we've been really, you're probably the person I travel with the most in tattooing. And we've got a lot of traveling coming up. In fact, you're in town this weekend, and we're going to drive to San Angelo for the West Texas Tattoo Convention put on by the Trufant Brothers. Going to be a ripping good time. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You were just telling me there's going to be a lot of people at this convention.
A lot of our buds.
A lot of our buds, a lot of tattooers. Hopefully, a lot of people getting tattooed. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
On the note of that, just starting off on the talk about tattoo conventions, there's so many now.
So many, man.
There's so many. You just did one last weekend in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was a last minute deal too. Big Jazz, my buddy Big Jazz hit me up. He had
We
an extra
love
booth.
Big Jazz.
He had an extra booth and hit me up Thursday morning. I drove up there Thursday night and tattooed for 3 days in Pittsburgh and hung out with Big Jazz and had a good time. Went home for a day, got on an airplane and flew to Dallas to hang out with you.
And here we are. Couple days in Dallas before we drive to San Angelo. I was hoping we were going to get some motorcycle weather, but it looks like it's going to be freezing cold.
Yeah, I brought that cold with me.
Well, so many tattoo conventions. And I don't, I'm kind of torn on this topic because I love tattoo conventions and I love going and working in different environments and working side by side with different people and going to see what everybody else has got going on. So I do love that aspect of it, but I also feel the oversaturation of the last few years, and not even the last few, but the last decade of tattooing. The oversaturation of tattoo conventions has made it to the point to where it's just kind of most major cities have more than one.
Yeah.
And it just kind of whittles it down. It waters it down. It kind of cheapens it a little bit. And it just, there's some convention you go to where the public is there thinking that this is the place to go to get a cheap tattoo, when the idea of a tattoo convention is almost the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tire kickers at these shows. I think a lot of them go there and they're bargain shopping for something or whatever. And I think that fact that there is so many of them, it just waters it down, man. And I think this Pittsburgh deal, there's 3 a year there at least. And there used to just be one, and that was a really cool one. And it was going on for over 20 years. And then somebody throws another one and another one and another one. We were at a bar and our bartender was saying, "Oh, are you at the convention at the Sheraton?" We're like, "No, we're at the Radisson." She's like, "Oh no, the Sheraton was like last week."
Oh, yeah.
So there's so many of them.
Well, as soon as something pops off and does well, we're like, "Oh, well, we should do one also." But I think, best intentions aside, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it continues, because it can't sustain itself at the rate that things are going. One thing that my biggest pet peeve about tattoo conventions is when there's local tattoo shops at the tattoo convention. And I've said it a million times, but it's like, why would a tattoo shop pack up their stuff and go 5 miles across town and set up at a tattoo convention? The idea of the convention is for people in Pittsburgh now have a chance to get a tattoo from people from all over the world.
Yeah, from
all
far
over the
away.
country, far away. They can just go to the convention and get a tattoo from somebody who they have been following and like their tattoos, but can't afford to travel to San Francisco or Italy or wherever the hell somebody's from. And that concept is kind of getting lost. In my show, Elmfest, there's no local tattooers. And I've had a little bit of back and forth with some local tattooers that want to come in, and I kindly explain to them that that's not this kind of show. And most people have understood it, and it makes sense. I just think that I wish more tattoo conventions would embrace that.
Yeah, but your approach is way different. I think a lot of these people are putting these shows on to make money off of it.
That definitely differs from my approach.
Yeah. I mean, you put on
my approach is not a business plan.
Yeah, you put on a great show and it's awesome for the tattooers. We're taken care of really well. It's small. There's good food catered for us, snacks in the green room, and it's awesome. And a lot going on, all the music aspect of it, shows every night, the after parties. It's a blast, man.
But even with the bigger show model, and even with the money making premise, I still think you could cater to the idea that this is to showcase artists from far away.
Yeah.
I also do understand the mentality of the local tattoo shop saying, "Oh, there's a convention in town. Everybody in town is going to go to this convention. I should have my shop name there to promote and get the word out to the local people." So I do understand that side of it, but I think maybe the local shops should take more of just like a promoting aspect to it, to promote tattooing in general. And, all the local shops could have some sort of setup where they're not actually tattooing there. They could just be promoting and spreading the word and getting the word out about their shop, but then promoting the artists that traveled, but a lot of people don't want to selfishly promote when they're not going to gain. But I feel like what everyone will gain in return is more knowledge about tattooing, more people getting serious about tattooing, more people looking out for the best tattooers and that kind of stuff. And it helps everybody who's trying to be a part of that tattoo community.
I think with all these shows, man, it has watered it down so much. The attendance is so low. And I not any show in particular, but a lot of them you go to, 10, 15 years ago, there was thousands of people through the door. And you could tell how many people were in there. These shows now, some of them, man, I sit there and I imagine they're lucky if they get 300 people to come in. I don't know how they're surviving doing a show if making money off of putting the convention on is your idea. There's the turnout's low.
Yeah. Well, I remember the days of, the line around the block.
Yeah.
Waiting to get into the tattoo convention. Every tattoo convention, whether it was Miami or San Francisco or Detroit or whatever, everybody was like, literally thousands of people flood the door and everybody's at their booth ready. Okay, doors are open in 20 minutes. Get ready. That is not the case anymore.
Yeah. Those days are gone.
Well, the only place, there's a few small markets that still kind of have that. And I do this Fresno convention. I know that it's in the middle of nowhere. And last year it was like that. There was 1,000 people waiting to get in the door when it opened. And it's because it's Fresno and there's not much else going on. And there's only one convention a year and it's a small market.
Yep.
It's a metropolitan area where there's a bunch of small cities all around and everybody comes to Fresno for the convention. But you put on a show in Detroit or Miami or wherever you're going to put a big show on, there's so much going on in every major city that a tattoo convention is just one more little thing.
Well, every weekend there's one somewhere.
Every weekend there's two.
Yeah, somewhere, And
well, we're about to be at a few. We're about to be at San Angelo this weekend, and then the following weekend I'll be at Fresno, and then the following weekend I'll be at Salt Lake City, and then the following weekend I'll be in Wichita, Kansas, and then the following weekend I'll be back in California at Oroville, California. What is that? 5 or 6 weekends in a row. And there's other tattoo conventions in other part of the country during that same time.
Yeah, there's always one going on somewhere, man.
So as far as like me and you being like traveling tattooers, you've been a traveling tattooer since before I knew you. Like I knew of you from traveling. I knew people that got tattooed by you when you went to Austin and worked at Rock of Ages. I knew before we actually were hanging out. I knew of you going to these places and I saw you on the road and I was always on the road and we crossed paths a few times. But what is it? We're gonna work our way back to your tattoo history, but just to start off with where we're at now, what do you think drove you to be such a traveling tattooer? Because there's kind of those tattooers that are busy in their hometown and they're booked up and they do a couple of conventions in the year and they just stay put. And then there's some tattooers that are just always on the go.
I had always traveled a little bit, but not like this. And I had a kid, my son, I moved back to Ohio. I was in Miami.
What a mistake he was, right?
He's a good kid.
Now he's a good kid.
He is a good kid. He's tattooing also, and he's doing awesome, man. But I moved back to Ohio. I was in Miami, and I moved back to Ohio in '99, and I stayed put for a long time. I would travel a little bit and do some conventions and stuff. And then at some point, my buddy Chad Keplinger wanted me to do a show in Montreal, and I hadn't really been out of the country or anything. And I did that with him, and hadn't been to any conventions in Canada. And I did a few tattoos, but I wasn't really busy. But Chad had been traveling pretty hard leading up to all that for quite a few years.
He's one of the most traveled tattooers.
And he was so busy, and he just tattooed. He did more tattoos than I had ever seen at the time, man. He was just one after another all weekend. I was like, man, it's really cool. I think I want to do that. I want to travel, and I want to be busy, you know, and do a lot of tattoos. I would do conventions in the past, sell paintings and shirts, and then maybe do a few tattoos. But I really started focusing on it then, and hit it hard, and worked really hard to be busy on the road and achieve that. And then now nobody thinks I'm ever at home.
Yeah, I definitely have that from how much traveling I do. People are always like, are you ever at the shop anymore? And people come in the shop and they're like surprised when I'm there, like people that don't come in, you know, people that just happen to come in Elm Street. And I'm like, I'm here a lot.
Yeah, I tell them, man, if I travel half the year, that means I'm home half the year.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be gone all the time. You go a little harder than I do. I try to just do something every other week and have some time at home in between everything, you know.
I mean, I kind of pretty much have, for the most part over the last 15 plus years or so, it's been about 50-50.
Yeah.
You know, I'm at the shop about 50% of my work time, and traveling and other places. I, as a younger tattooer, the way I learned about the people that I really looked up to in tattooing was that they came to Dallas, you know, or they came to Texas, and they came to Austin. Like Dan Higgs came to Austin in the early 90s, and Eric Mossy came to Dallas in the early 90s, and I met these people and got tattooed by them, and other tattooers were always traveling through. And then I just kind of, you know, before the internet, you would see, you know, mostly just through tattoo magazines and other stuff, you would see so-and-so's going to be at Tattoo City this month, or so-and-so's going to be here this month, or some, you know what I mean? It's like, I just got hooked in to this concept of being able to go, you know, and be that traveling artist, you know, the circus carny lifestyle. And some of the older tattooers that I've worked with younger, like Ernie Gosnell was like a big, you know, early carnival tattooer traveling guy. And that was just the allure to me.
Well, you did it hard. You did all the Warped Tour for all those years.
I did a lot of touring, a lot of this, a lot of that. And, you know, I had a partner, Dean Williams, who just stayed home. Like it was like pulling teeth to get him to go to a convention. And he went to a few every year or so. I'd drag him somewhere. And then he would just be like, nah, that's good. I'm good for a while. And he'd just stay home for a year. And it's like, I witnessed how he did it, and I witnessed how I did it. And I think it's kind of, everybody's different, you know, but I've kind of, once me and you met, we kind of just latched on to like this idea we could go here, go here, go here, go here, you know?
Yeah, but it's not always conventions for us, man. A lot of it's motorcycles. We'll ride motorcycles, but we'll figure out how to tattoo along the way too. And then you try to balance it all out. We're doing conventions, and then we're doing all these AMCA swap meets and chopper shows, you name it, you know. That adds a whole nother level of difficulty to it.
Well, the best thing that I've done for me is that jumping on with Ben Nichols on the Bike Riders Tour and figuring out a way to pack all my tattoo gear into a motorcycle pack and be able to travel and tattoo. And the last few years you've done that.
Yeah, the first time I did that, I was in New Hampshire at my buddy Jay Scott's shop, Congress Street, and Hobos, and I had flown home, And I landed and I got a message that you guys were in Akron and you were hanging out. And I jumped on my motorcycle, my chopper. That's all I had at the time. I didn't have a touring bike or anything. And threw my wife on the back and we rode about an hour.
It was cold. To
meet up with you guys in Akron with my buddy Chuck Euler. And hung out with you guys. And we talked about, I said, man, I want to do this. And you said, well, you can't do it on that bike.
You gotta have saddlebags and tour packs.
You need a motorcycle that's built for this. And then the following year, I came here and bought a bike from Dream Machines, man.
Bought that Police Electric Glide.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Our good friends at Dream Machines Motorcycles. They'll make you a sweet deal.
Man, I got a couple bikes from them.
Yeah. And man, that is, I mean, the days that we're on the road, getting up in the morning, jamming on the bike, show up at a tattoo shop, unpack our gear and tattoo, that's the best.
I love it. I think a lot of people could not do it.
Yeah, but we also, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we blew into some town and showed up at a tattoo shop. We didn't know the people at the tattoo shop, but we'd hit them up and said, hey, we're coming through town. We're looking for a place to tattoo. And they were like hospitable. But we roll in on our bikes and we had like noon appointments and we show up at the curb at like 11:48 and we'd grab all our shit out of our bikes and set up and start tattooing. And then we'd get done with these tats. We'd pack all our shit in our bikes. And by 6 p.m. we're at sound check at the club. And you're just like, man, we're just blowing people's minds.
Yeah, we roll in there and we're usually only doing 2 appointments.
2 or 3 a day.
Yeah, sometimes 3. But I don't think people are used to that kind of tattooing. And I mean, for us, we have to do it because part of that tour is raising money for the charities. And you're not just there tattooing, you know, we gotta roll in, we gotta load in, help load in the merch, help sell tickets to raise the money. So we gotta get the tattooing done and get to the club to help out and do all that and then watch the show.
And it's the best. Bike Riders Tour with Ben Nichols from Lucero is my favorite time of year. It looks like this year, the word is that Ben might just be too busy. And new album coming out and Lucero Tour and solo tour. There may or may not be time for a Bike Riders Tour this summer, which will be heartbreaking.
I mean, we've missed a year.
We've missed a year. But if we don't have a Bike Riders Tour this year, me and Greg have the reserve shoot plan of 2-wheel tat tour.
Yeah.
So we've already started talking about the idea. So one year we did this, that me and you just 2-wheel tat toured, and we just picked a destination and went to a handful of shops. And I think that was the year we went all the way up to Maine, right?
Yeah.
And we just zigzagged around. Went to saw Christos in West Virginia and a few places, and
I think that was my tune-up trip for bike riders. Yeah. I don't think I had ever done a long trip on a touring bike at that point. And I don't know how far we went. It wasn't quite as many miles as we do on Bike Riders. Some of these Bike Riders tours, we do over 6,000 miles in 12 days. But we did a few shops, and then we wanted to go to Bar Harbor, Maine. Mm-hmm. We made it to Portland, Maine.
We did hit some weather.
There was a lot of rain, and there was some rain in New England that you might have called it snow.
Yeah, we got cold. It definitely snowed.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was hot everywhere else in the country, but we were in the freezing cold. But we did still some of the best times ever.
It was great, man. Even when the weather's bad, it's still awesome. It makes the nice days even better. And when we started that trip out, it was beautiful weather. And then about midway, we had 3 days where we constantly rode in rain. And then the last few days of it were real beautiful too.
You know, when you look back on your life and you think about things that you've done and things that could have been your end, there was a few of those on that trip.
Oh yeah.
Where we're just on the highway, just dark because we're late, trying to get to the next city. It's pitch black dark. It's pouring rain. Semis on the highway are just blazing by. You can't see anything. I can just see a few sprinkles of the red lights in front of me on the road, and we're just cruising down the highway. And it's like any second, who knows what? Yeah. I mean,
and we don't ride slow in the rain.
Okay, here's the deal. We're going to, after this gas stop, we're just going to ride slow to the next gas stop. We're going to take it easy. And then 100 miles an hour. Here we go.
I mean, at some point, you just want to get to where you're going to get out of it, man.
Well, so far, so good. So we are already talking about the two-wheel tat tour for this year. And we don't really have a plan on exact time or exact direction, but we've just circled the idea that we're going to pass through Colorado Springs. Yeah, we're going to pass through Dave Wolf's Tattoo Demon Shop, and we're going to plan the rest of the trip, whether we go before that or after that. We're going to figure that out. But that's basically, we had such a good ride the last time we rode through there, so we're going to do that. Who knows?
I think that's a good spot to start, or at least to hit it on some point.
I think that'll be the middle.
Yeah.
So if you're leaving from Ohio, we make it to Colorado, that we can go north, south, east, or west from there and figure it out.
Try to meet up somewhere.
Well,
maybe Peoria.
That's a great place to meet up.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, we've got a lot. We'll be in Salt Lake in a couple of weeks, but what do you got for your other travel this year? You leaving the country this year?
I don't know if I'm leaving the country or not. I got
Well, just so you know, I'm going to try to convince you to come to Japan when we go.
Oh, I know. I'm ready for some Japan. I got some shows, mostly stuff here in America. Let's see. We got Salt Lake, and then the show in Scranton, PA.
Oh, that reminds me, I'm going to be in Scranton, PA.
Yeah, you're going to be there this year. That's a great one. I like these shows. There's these shows in these smaller towns.
Slightly smaller shows.
They're more of a normal size of what you would have seen 15, 20 years ago, where there's maybe 100 tattooers, instead of 1,000 tattooers. And I really like these shows. I try to focus on those and go to those shows more than these giant ones. I think the smaller it is, the better it is. You get to hang out more. It's more intimate. It's nicer. The turnout's great. Everybody seems to be busier, and they're a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, the mindset of having a cool tattoo event as opposed to the mindset of just putting on a massive event where you can make the most amount of money at it or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you came up with the world's smallest tattoo convention
idea.
It's great, man.
Hey, I'm really stoked because our buddy Chris Yvonne has also adopted the world's smallest TattCon idea. Like, he is, his show out there in San Diego was, 30 something tattooers maybe, right?
Yeah, it was in a Masonic lodge, real small, one big room, everybody lined up. He did it, last year was the first year, and he's going to do it again this year. And,
yeah, I didn't get to make it.
We had a blast.
I didn't get to make it, but I heard from everybody there that it was fucking great.
Yeah, it was
so
really good show.
I want more of that. I want more of that, like, community-minded small shows put on everywhere. I want that kind of idea to spread. And I think once people do shows like that, they really kind of get the value of it.
I mean, I think it's going to all circle back to that eventually, because all this stuff, it can't sustain itself, man. It's gonna trickle away, and hopefully, it'll be back to these smaller shows and less shows, and then I think it'll just be better for everything, really.
Well, let's bounce back to the beginning. Me and you have we're kind of on the same timeline. We're both born in 1971. I did not have a child at any point in my life, so that's our big difference. But what year did you start tattooing?
91.
And that's the time when I actually started tattooing with actual real tattoo equipment. I was tattooing before that with homemade tattoo equipment. I don't know how much of that you did.
I did not do a lot of that.
But did you ever do any stick and poke tats or any?
Not really. I might have had a little stick and poke tat at some point, but nothing really to speak of till I really started tattooing.
Well, that's good. I heavily promote when young kids, any young kid that I can get to listen to me, which their parents should avoid this at all costs. I do try to encourage them to tattoo themselves. I tell them how to do it.
Oh yeah.
And a buddy of mine's kid just recently is about to turn 18, and I've tattooed his mom and his dad a bunch. And we're off track right now, but we'll get back on. And I told them, they're like, oh, he's going to want to get his first tattoo and they want you to do it because you tattooed all of us and blah, blah, blah. And I told them, I said, hey, look, if you tattoo yourself before you're 18, then when you come in here on your 18th birthday, I'll give you a free tattoo. But if you come in here with no tats and I do your first tattoo, then I'm going to charge you. And he's like, his mom was like, don't tell him that. And his dad is like, do it.
I mean, that's a great deal.
So I just talked to his dad the other day. He's like, he's figuring out what he's going to do, And I'm like, yeah, just poke it up.
It's easy for them now.
I know.
They don't need to stick and poke it. They can just buy a tattoo machine anywhere.
They can do anything. But still, I love the idea that your first tattoo should be underground, should be outlaw, should be do it yourself, should be DIY, should be, something, I mean,
I had a lot of buddies. We had fake IDs and shit, and people were getting tattooed.
Oh, in the late 80s, early 90s, the tattoo shops in Dallas, they didn't check IDs.
Yeah.
Everybody got tattooed underage.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, maybe Vegas Vacation when he's on the strip.
Yes.
Just the fake ID.
I love it. Mr. Papa Giorgio.
My buddy Sean Dog Art had the big giant license where you hold it with your face and they take a photo of you, right?
Oh my God.
Cut it out and laminate it.
So good.
And yeah, we had those things.
Mr. Papa Giorgio. I love that. Yeah, Sean Dogard. I'm sure he did that.
Oh, he did.
So you started tattooing in 91, and how did you get this break? How did you get into that?
I mean, I had a buddy that I grew up with riding BMX, and he went off to the Navy, and he came home with some tattoos, and I just thought it was the coolest, man. And then started really, you always have friends, older skateboard friends that are tattooed up. So you see that, and I just wanted to get tattooed, and finally got a tattoo. And then we met this guy, Dave Nikolai, and he was a underground tattooer in Cleveland. He was also a drummer for band Integrity for a while. And I started getting tattooed by Dave a lot. And he had worked in some shops, but he was working out of like a home studio kind of setup. And I was getting tattooed by him, and I showed some interest in it, and I would talk about wanting to tattoo. And for some reason, he helped me out. And when I say help me out, you couldn't buy a tattoo machine in 91. There was very few suppliers. And if you weren't at an established shop,
they wouldn't sell to you.
They wouldn't even take your call.
Yeah.
And he was established, and he was able to help me get a machine, and I had like a little tiny National tattoo machine, one machine. I didn't even have two. And, you got to have some supplies. You need tubes and needles. You couldn't buy a needle then. We had to make our needles. So we had a lot of stuff to figure out. It was way more to it, way more complicated than it is now, that you can just buy everything pre-made. And he helped me get some stuff, and I just went at it, started tattooing my friends, and I just thought it was cool, and I was going to do it. And I kind of just attacked it and went at it. But I had jobs too, I wasn't in a shop right away. I was just tattooing out of my house when I wasn't at work, and would just try to do it as much as I could.
And then at what point did you end up in Florida?
Oh man.
And what took you to Florida?
It's long story short.
Well, that's what we're here for.
So I was tattooing out of my house. I had a friend that I was in high school with. He called me one day and he said, I'm learning to tattoo in Tennessee. I'm apprenticing. And I said, man, I'm tattooing too, which was just by chance,
Yeah.
I said, I'm tattooing too, out of my house. And he said, well, you should come down here. And we're tattooing at a motorcycle rally called Run to the Smokies in Cherokee, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, man, I'm coming down there. And I had one of my buddies drive me down there. I met up with my friend at the shop. The shop was called Tennessee Mountain Tattoo. The old man that he was working for and learning from was this guy, F.E. Craig. And I tattooed with them for the weekend at this motorcycle rally. And I wasn't really into motorcycles then. We were tattooing in a swap meet building.
Yeah.
There was maybe like 10 tattooers in there and then a whole swap meet going on around me, but I didn't have a lot of interest in that. I was pretty focused on the tattooing. And I did that show with him and we went back to the shop. And before I went home, I asked F.E., I asked him for a job, And he said, man, you want to work here? And I said, yeah, man, I want to work here. And he said, all right, you go home and get your shit and you be back here in 2 weeks. And I did. I went home, packed my shit and moved to Tennessee.
So at that time in Cleveland, what was your living situation?
I was roommates with Dave Wolf.
Aha!
So Dave and I,
But he was tattooing?
No, he would tattoo a little bit with my stuff.
Yeah.
Because we had a little home studio set up and Dave could always draw better than all of us. So
yeah,
he would do a little tattooing every once in a while too. Same time frame really. And so I packed my stuff and left and went to Tennessee. And that's where I really learned how to tattoo. Turns out F.E. had a lot of connections in the Daytona, Florida tattooing. He owned a shop called Southern Refried Tattoo with Gilmani and Wando, Crazy Ace, Luz Cabarrus from Miami.
Well, anybody that was tattooing and owned a shop back then probably had some connections with tattooers all over the country.
Yeah, it was pretty small.
What the community was, if you had an account with National Tattoo Supply, which you pretty much had to have if you owned a tattoo shop, you were in the book. Yeah. Of National Tattoo Supply, and you were a member, and most of those people were members of National Tattoo Supply, and and that was the book to know everything. Like that, getting in that, it was a small community, and everybody knew who everybody was, and you could easily find out who was the main tattooer in this city or that city or this city. Pretty easy.
Yeah. Well, Tennessee was where I really learned to tattoo. Once I got in that shop, and at that time, I had only been tattooing for probably 6 months. I think a lot of the tattooing in that area at that time wasn't that great. So being a younger tattooer that had a little more of an art background, I did all right. My tattoos looked pretty good. But tattooing there, every day as a job, that's how I really learned to tattoo from F.E. I made needles for me. You had to make needles for the old man.
Yeah.
And I would tattoo. We opened at 10 a.m. He was always there before us all, and he always did a tattoo before we all got there. You tattoo your shift, and at the end of the day, you got to mop the shop and clean the shop, and then you got to scrub the tubes. There was a lot more to it than just tattooing, but I had always had jobs growing up, so I just treated it
you knew
like work.
You knew what work was.
And I loved it because I was in a tattoo shop, man. There was nothing better than that, to be working in a tattoo shop.
Yeah. I mean, what a lucky turn of events.
And I spent maybe 91 to early 94 there, and my time had kind of come to an end, and I ended up back in Cleveland. And there wasn't ton of shops in Cleveland then that I didn't really want to work at. So I thought I would set up another home studio kind of gig. And I did that for a few months, and FE called me and said, Lou Scaberez is looking for a tattooer down in Miami at Tattoos by Lou. And I had just moved back to Ohio,
so you left FE on good terms.
Yeah,
and he recommended you. Yeah.
And
never try not to burn bridges.
It was a weird situation. I was going through some stuff, and I disappeared for a couple weeks, and when I came back, my station was all packed up.
Ah.
But it was always, it was real good. There was no bad feelings, you know. And so he hit me up. He said, Lou's looking for somebody. And I had just moved back to Ohio. I just got settled in. And I'm like, I just kind of blew it off, you know. And then 2 weeks went by, and he called me again. And he said, did you talk to Lou? He's waiting for you to hit him up. And I'm like, man, I didn't do it. He's like, you need to call him. So I was like, all right, I'll call him. And I called Lou up, and Lou wanted a portfolio. You know, you had to make a portfolio. You had to print pictures, put them in a photo album, mail it to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't just look at your work on the internet.
Yeah.
And
couldn't just text him a photo.
I sent all my stuff to Lou, and he got it, and he got back to me and told me to come down there. When could I be down there? And I still wasn't really sold on moving again. I just got back to Ohio, back home again. And I said, I'll come down there and I'll try it out for a couple weeks. And this was 94. And the couple weeks turned into
you're like
about
20,
7
you're
years.
like 23, 24 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah, 23 when I got to Miami. And that ended up being about a 7-year run in Miami.
Yeah.
But that is where I was really, you know, I learned
that's where you made
all
the
stuff, you know, in Tennessee from FE, how to tattoo and how to put a good tattoo on. But Florida was where I really got exposed to a lot of tattooers that I had always looked at in magazines.
Well, Tattoos by Lou was like, I mean, one of the number one shops.
Oh yeah,
in the world, probably.
Yeah, he always had the best tattooers.
And he sucked you out. That's good.
Yeah, and he got me there, and that was it. He knew. Once you got there, you weren't going to leave.
Yeah, once you get a sniff of this, baby.
You're 23, you're in South Beach, Miami.
I mean, that was also a pretty sweet time for South Beach before it got what it is now. I mean, South Beach has been like a lot of different things. Just like Deep Ellum has been a lot of different neighborhoods over the years. South Beach has been, I mean, that was like probably the rock and roll era.
It was. I think the time I was there was kind of the tail end of that really good Miami days, you know. It changed a lot there, you know, like over the years. But Lou had a shop in Cutler Ridge that got destroyed by the hurricane. And then he put that shop on South Beach. And I think when I was there was only 3 tattoo shops on Miami Beach. And that seemed like a lot. And now.
But South Beach, Miami was like heavy tourist every day of the year.
Yeah.
Like there's no slow season in South Beach. You know, even the winter is not the winter. You know, it's like a lot of places have like their busier times of the year. Miami is like always busy.
Yeah, it was great. The tattooing was nonstop. And that shop was open till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we did it.
And when you were a new guy, you worked that night shift, man. You had to put some time in to be on that day shift, you know. And we would tattoo till 3 a.m. And Lou would usually roll in. You'd hear him pull in on his motorcycle at about 2:30, and we'd all be like, oh god damn it, here he comes. Because you knew if he was sitting there and a tattoo came in,
you're gonna do it
1 minute to 3.
Oh yeah.
And it was a 3-hour tattoo, you were fucking tattooing until 6 a.m.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of how when I was working for Richard and Deep Ellum, you know, we were open till I think when we first opened the shop in Deep Ellum, we moved the shop. Well, I worked for Richard when it was first Paradise shop was on Main Street, right out on the outskirts of Deep Ellum. Then he moved it into Deep Ellum. I think the door said midnight, but we were we were there until people quit coming in. And it was like, if somebody walks in the door, you get their money.
Yeah.
You're doing the tap. And so we were there till 2, 3, 4 every night, every weekend night. And Richard was a late night kind of guy. You know, Richard, when I first started working for Richard, he was the guy that was there early. Very quickly, he became the guy that didn't come to work until 5 or 6 p.m. You know, he may have his first appointment like later in the afternoon after lunch, and then he'd stay late. So there was no getting off early. But he called the shop. That shop, the second that we were supposed to open, that shop phone would ring. You had to answer it. If you didn't answer, you weren't open yet, he was pissed. And he'd go right back to sleep. He'd have an alarm set. He'd have an alarm set for 11:59. He'd like wake up, call, y'all open? Okay. And then whatever. But going back to talking about the national tattoo supply, man, I had tattooed a little bit before I worked for Richard. I did a bunch of home tats. You know, all the older punk rockers I knew skateboarding as a kid, they all had homemade tats. So that's how I got into this, you know, tatting with homemade machines and stuff, and jailhouse style tattooing, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. But then I got a job at a tattoo shop that nobody knew what was going on. So they hired me, you know. I only worked there for a few months, and it was just chaos. Because there was customers walk in the door thinking this is like a legitimate tattoo shop. And I'm like, I've been tattooing it was crazy. It was insane. So when I got the opportunity to learn to tattoo for Richard, and I went and started working for Richard, it was like that getting to look at that National Tattoo Supply catalog was like what opened the world. Like, oh my God, I can order from this now.
Yeah.
You know, I was using, you know, ketchup cups from McDonald's for ink caps, and, you know, just anything you could get to try to just like whatever, because you didn't have tattoo supply stuff. And I think that the fact that they had something like that was available to the tattoo community, and you had to be a legitimate tattooer to get that stuff, made it like, that was the reason to get a job at a shop, and that was the reason to apprentice, and that was the reason to fucking, you know, bust your ass and clean the toilet or mop the floor or do whatever you had to do to get your foot in the door. Nowadays, you can get anything.
I think
on Amazon.
I think a lot of people have these theories on like what's the worst thing that's happened to tattooing, and a lot of people point at the TV shows and all that shit. I don't think that's it. I think the worst thing that happened to tattooing was that anybody could get tattoo equipment. The availability to get tattoo machines or equipment, I think that was one of the biggest downfalls, that it just, everybody has tattoo stuff now.
It's wild. And I've said this before, and at least 2 or 3, every time I say it, it blows somebody's mind. But you can buy for real tattoo machines of every make and model on Walmart.com.
Yeah, it's insane.
Just Walmart.com. They sell coil machines, aluminum machines, brass frames. They sell Dan Cuban ripoffs. They sell dildos. They sell every single thing you could ever want straight on there.
And I don't know, maybe when I was young, I wouldn't have cared, you know. Yeah. I would have been stoked to be able to get that. But
the problem is, from my point of view, the problem with the availability to that stuff being so easily accessible is that although you can grab the equipment easily, you still have to have some sort of knowledge and training to it. And, you know, it's not a good thing to just tattooing. I mean, if you're going to tattoo yourself, I say go for it. I say do whatever means you want to do. But if you're going to try to be a tattooer for a job, for business, tattoo other people, you need to learn how to tattoo.
Yeah.
If you just want to scribble on yourself and be punk rock, I love that. But if you're a young kid and you scribble on yourself and you're punk rock, and then later you want to laser it off or cover it up, fuck you. You're a loser. Stick with it.
Yeah.
You want to just, that whole scenario of people just, the non-permanence of tattooing also, I think it's the worst thing to happen to tattooing.
I wanted to get into it, and I got into it how I did, but I did end up in a shop, and I did learn from somebody that tattooed, and maybe that was just luck for me, but I think that's something that's really lost, having that come up in an apprenticeship where you're working at a shop and you're making needles and you're scrubbing someone's tubes, the old man that owns the shop, and then you're mopping when you leave. And now a kid tattoos for a year or 2 years and they got 2 apprentices.
Yeah.
But they don't even know what they're doing yet. You can't teach somebody when you're still learning how to do it,
Well, that is happening a lot.
A lot.
That is happening a lot. There's so many people that have taught. There's so many people out there, even people that I like, even great tattooers out there that have had many, many, many apprentices. That's a debate too. You could debate whether you should only teach one tattooer to replace yourself when you're gone, or whether you should have like one every generation, one every, because you really, if you're going to teach somebody to tattoo, you should be a part of that, of their process for 5 years until they're kicked out of the nest and set free to really be a tattooer. But if you're turning over a tattooer every couple of years, none of those tattooers are getting the full benefit, and the tattoo community is not getting a quality product put out.
Yeah.
So,
hey man, you know what? I think a lot of the, like when we got into this in the early 90s, a lot of those tattooers from the 60s and 70s and 80s, they felt the same way we do about a lot of the new guys and stuff. And it comes in waves with all these new generations coming in. I try not to really focus on the negativity of it. I think there's so much incredible tattooing happening in the world right now, and we're a part of it, and we've been a part of it during a really cool time in tattooing.
And I do think it'll even out, because the oversaturation, it'll only work as long as it works. It can't sustain itself forever. There's tattooers right now that are, the tattooers that have been tattooing less than 5 years right now are like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh yeah.
Like, they started at a time when it was just like high on the hog, and you could be a 1-year tattooer and you're making a living. And now 2025, 2024, 2025, you can't pay your rent.
It's gotten a little more difficult.
The people that are the old, people that have a clientele, people that are established, people that have a thing, they're going to weather the slow time and the storm. The people that are still learning, like, you learn, you get better and you learn the more you do. So therefore, the less you're doing, the less your growth is happening. So these people are going through a hard time right now.
Yeah, well, that'll weed people out.
Maybe.
I think the one, if you really love it and you want to do it, you'll survive it and you'll figure out what to do.
That's my main advice to the younger tattooers that have been hitting me up recently about how this last year has been rough and slow. And I'm like, hey, if you're tattooing for the money, then you're not gonna make it. If money is the only reason you're in this business, then you're not gonna make it. Money is a benefit of this business, and it can be great, but look at the people who money is the driving force. Like, those people aren't the Chris Garvers and the Chris O'Donnells and those people aren't the Timothy Hoyers and the Brian Brunos. The people that really have like changed tattooing and dedicated and brought real art to tattooing. The money is the byproduct. It's not the main ambition.
It is. I wanted to tattoo because it was fucking cool. And I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that it would have taken me to where I am in my life.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's amazing.
And I mean, we're still riding this wave.
We are, but you've said it. You've told me, you said, you know what, Greg? We're not going to get any better.
We're just getting older.
And it's only going to get harder.
Yeah.
And you're right.
I mean,
you're right.
I think that I think there is some truth to there is a peak of when you hit your peak, and then from then you're going to decline, you know, and at some point you've done the best tattoo you're ever going to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, man, it's difficult. It's harder. It gets harder. You start hurting, you're old. Man, in the 90s, mid 90s, man, I could do an outline.
Oh yeah.
So good. Quick, perfect. Now I struggle a little bit.
Well, the glasses, the eyesight is a big thing.
Yeah.
And so I started, you know, I got glasses a few years ago, and I wear them when I tattoo, and I didn't realize, you know, there was a period where I was just like, my tattooing, I could tell wasn't as clean or wasn't as good, wasn't as precise. And I noticed, because when I looked at the tattoo, it looked great, but when I would look at a photo of a tattoo and zoom in, I'm like, oh man. And so I was like, oh man, I need glasses. So I got glasses, and it definitely helps. But man, there was about a year where the glasses it was hard with glasses, because now I've gotten used to glasses, and I feel like I've gotten back to being better, gotten back to being how I was before I needed glasses. But the first year and a half or so of using glasses, it was a learning curve, because your vision with glasses is not the same as your vision being perfect.
Definitely not. But...
And I'm used to just being able to just see this line and hit it and boom, 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 no problem. And now I have to, your glasses only are in focus in this one perfect point.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. And now that was a learning curve. And
I've always had glasses or contacts since I was 14. So
for me, it was a big hurdle. I mean, I bet it was a big hurdle. And now it's like, now I can't even put my needle in my tube without glasses.
Yeah.
You know, I can't.
Those needles are harder to see, that's for sure.
But I'm getting really close to the point of needing to wear my glasses when I'm not tattooing. I'm only wearing glasses when I tattoo, but I mean, Audra's got to read the menu for me at a restaurant, because I can't see it.
Oh man.
So I'm getting close to wearing her out, you know, of not being able to see things. And it's funny, because, like, you know, when you're doing something, you're like, oh, you're driving or whatever. Here, will you text this person back for me? You know, and she hands me her phone, and I'm just like, I can't see anything. I can't see this. And her text is tiny on her phone. I can't read it. So on my phone, text is all huge. So it won't be long until I'm a full-time glasses person. I'm scared of the LASIK.
Yeah. Well, my problem is I can't see far. I can't see close. And LASIK only fixes one thing. So you got to pick what you want. And it always kind of scared me.
I haven't looked into it, so I don't know if I'm a candidate for it or not. I know that some people say it's the most amazing thing that ever happened to them. But 1 in a million chance that it goes.
I mean, lasers on your eyeballs.
I mean, that's
pretty wild.
I mean, Richard Stell got LASIK, and he went blind in one eye because the laser hit a scar tissue and it expanded over his cornea, and he couldn't see out the eye anymore. And just that happening to one person in the history of time is enough to scare me to death. You know what I mean? But I mean, I'm trying to get a couple more years out of tattooing here.
I think we got a few more years.
I'm gonna take a quick pee break. We're back from peeing. At least I'm peeing. I'm done peeing.
I got a water.
Got celery in my teeth. All right, so Miami for how many years? 7 years.
Yeah, about 6 or 7 years.
And you worked with a lot of great people at that time, and that's where you got exposed to like the big world of tattooing.
Oh yeah. When I showed up there, it's wild, right? I got a ride with some friends that were going to Florida. They're like, we're going to Florida.
You didn't have a car.
No. They're like, I may have had a car, but they're like, we're going to Florida. I'm like, well, maybe you could drive me to Florida, you know? So I went down there and I had some tattoo equipment. I was only a 4-year tattooer at that point. And I didn't have a lot of money. And I got there and they dropped me off at the shop. And I walk in the shop and I meet Lou and Joe Vegas is in there tattooing, doing a guest spot.
I love Joe Vegas.
So, I mean, it was wild, you know. You got Albert Scambati was tattooing there then, Luis Sagado, and a lot of tattooers that I didn't know.
I know Luis is one of your favorites.
He is one of my favorites. So rolling in there as a 23-year-old, you know, these are guys I had been looking at in magazines for years.
At that point, Luis Sagado was like on fire.
Oh yeah.
Like his shit in the magazine was like fucking bam.
Yeah. Super powerful.
Yeah.
Heavy tattooing. And I showed up there and I didn't have anywhere to stay. And Lou walks me around the corner and gets me a hotel and he says, don't worry about it. Take it out of your check. And I'm like, all right. And I didn't have any money and he gave me some money. He's like, hey, don't worry about it. Take it out of your check.
It's like a pimp.
And I was into him for like $500 right away. I already owed him $500, you know, and started tattooing there with those guys. I think.
How long you stay in a hotel?
Maybe a few weeks. The wild part, why do we plan on staying there? And the wild part was Joe Vegas moved into the hotel with me, and my buddy Emerson moved into the hotel with me. So I'm staying in this hotel with these guys, and we're
flop house
working at the shop, you know, and I think growing up skateboarding.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm sure you've dealt with this. Like we would skate all over the country. I skateboarded out in California a lot. And if you didn't charge at a session, you would never get a chance to go.
Oh yeah.
You know? So I always felt like
you just got to drop in.
Yeah. You just got to go. And I kind of just attack tattooing like that too. Like you can't be intimidated by these dudes that you're rolling in with. You just gotta tattoo and do your thing, you know. Even though it was pretty wild to go in there and be working side by side with those guys.
What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Legacy Ink, the finest in tattoo pigments. I've been using this ink exclusively for over 20 years myself. It has been recently rebranded and marketed, but it has been the same recipe for decades. Real, hand-mixed tattoo pigments that heal great and last. People always comment on the yellow that I use and the yellow tattooed on me, my favorite, the Mayan yellow. I have seen countless 20-plus-year-old tattoos with the colors still vivid. Don't duck around with all these newfangled companies with their watered-down baloney. Get the tried, true, and tested good shit. You can find them on Instagram at Legacy Pigments or email Ashley today to place an order at legacyartsupplies@gmail.com. Tell them Oliver sent you and receive a special discount. Don't just do tattoos. Be part of a legacy. That's one of the things I loved about skateboarding. Is that as opposed to other regulated sports that I had played growing up as a kid, it was free for all. And it was survival of the fittest, and you had to fight for your spot.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like when you're playing on a little league team or whatever, it's like, okay, Jimmy, it's your turn. Come over here, stand here. All right, we're gonna show you how to do this, and and okay, Tommy, you come over here, you stand here now, it's your turn. And it's like that is not how skateboarding works.
No.
You show up at the park, and if you don't have the gumption, you're not gonna get a single run. Not the park where we're skating.
No, you had to go,
Like,
man.
little kids would come and stand at the edge of the ramp for 6 hours and never skate. And then the mom would be like, you need to let him skate. I'm like, that ain't how it works. You know what I mean? This little kid has got to push his board out to the coping, you know? And nobody's gonna wait.
Yeah, you can't be afraid to drop in when 3 other people drop in.
Well, but the thing is, if there's a kid on the deck, and he puts his board out on the coping and somebody else snakes him, he puts his board up. You do that like 5 or 6 times in a row, you're like, okay, this kid's going to go now because he's trying. But if you put your board out there and nobody lets you go and you go stand at the back of the deck for 5 hours, nobody's going to like go push you to the edge. Like nowadays they kind of do because it's a coddle society. But I liked it better when it was like, you got to want it. You have to want it.
Yeah.
You have to go for it. You have to make a decision to try. None of this little, okay, Jimmy, it's your turn. That's what's wrong with the fucking society now. Jimmy's waiting for his fucking turn.
Yeah, you had to take it.
Yeah.
You had to go for it, man. If you didn't charge and go for it, nobody was gonna let you in there.
And you're at a shop in South Beach, Miami with a bunch of badass tatters and people walking in, and you gotta fucking stand up and go to the counter and say, what do you want? What do you want? You know?
Oh, and I went from a tiny shop in Northeast Tennessee. Now we were busy, but it was not South Beach, man.
Not the same.
It was a whole nother animal down there, you know. And a lot of celebrities too, you know. Lou,
I have heard the story when you tattooed David Lee Roth.
Yeah, man. Lou always created such an amazing thing that all the celebrities were getting tattooed there, you know. And he always had the best artists coming through there, and he always kept the shop stacked with really good talent. I don't know how I ended up in there, but I did, you know, luckily for me. Man, the David Lee Roth story. So I was younger, you know, when I got there.
Some of you out there may or may not know who David Lee Roth is.
Yeah, the original singer for Van Halen.
The only singer.
Yeah, the only singer. It was pretty early on, maybe like 95, and I was younger, so I partied then. I would drink and stuff, and got caught up in that whole Miami party scene. We tattooed till 3 a.m. and then go sit at a bar till daylight. So we partied a lot, and was
it Club Deuce?
Yeah, Club Deuce. Me and Joe Vegas would go to this spot and Emerson would go to this spot called Ted's Hideaway, a little dive bar. Because Miami, it's a different kind of thing.
24-hour town, dude.
You can drink 24 hours there if you want to. Anyways, man, I was sitting in front of the shop. I had a rough night out. I was feeling really, really terrible, really hungover. I had no money at all. I either lost it gambling or spent it drinking or whatever. And I was sitting there on the bench with the piercer, Shelby, and smoking a cigarette, just feeling terrible, man. And this guy walks up and says, "Hey, man, how much to put some yellow in this tattoo?" And I'm thinking, oh, man, here's my chance. I'm going to get some money to get a sandwich and something to drink so I feel better. And I said, $20, man. $20, I'll put yellow in that tattoo. He's like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yep, $20. And I'm smoking, and Shelby's kind of looking at me like I'm crazy, you know? And he's like, "Well, how much for some white in there?" I'm like, 20 more. $40, you get yellow and white in your tattoo, no problem. And I remember him opening up. He's got a hip sack, and he looked kind of like a hippie, you know, those colorful hippie pants and hip sack. And he's got a baseball cap on, and he opens his wallet, and he's got two $20 bills in there. And he's like, "All right, can we do it?" And I said, "Yeah, man, let me just finish this cigarette and I'll tattoo you." Kind of being short with him. And I never really even looked at his face, you know? And Shelby's just kind of like staring at me like she knew who it was. I didn't know yet. And I got up, I finished my cigarette. I go, "All right, man, come on, let's go." And we go inside, and I go to open the door for him. And he goes, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's Greg." And reaches out to shake my hand. He goes, "Nice to meet you, Craig. I'm Dave." And when he did that and I looked at his face, I was like, oh my God. It's fucking David Lee Roth, dude.
With 220s in the wallet.
With $40. And I went in there, and I was a huge Van Halen fan as a kid and in high school. And I apologized to him. I said, "Man, I'm sorry. I was being short with you. I was feeling rough today and whatever." And we started tattooing him. And the tattoo I was putting the yellow and white in was a tattoo that Carrie Barbara did on him of like a little Huck Finn sitting on the side of a river. And we were talking. He showed me he had this cool crane tattoo from Horiyoshi 3. And we were talking. It was super cool. I told him, I said, "Man, I got to tell you, Van Halen really sucks without you in the band." And he goes, "You know what, Greg, let me tell you about those guys." And then went on this whole tangent about Van Halen and this and that. And it was really cool, man. It was really cool.
Yeah, I think David Lee Roth was Van Halen. I mean, I know Eddie Van Halen is a guitar player and he had the licks or whatever, but his style is not good.
Yeah.
Like very evident. As soon as David Lee Roth wasn't in him anymore, the band totally sucks. Like it just went, how could it go so wrong?
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, the guitar licks weren't enough.
And there's not a lot of bands that can switch singers and still be good. There's a few over the years. Yeah. AC/DC.
Yeah. AC/DC's good.
Yeah, but I didn't like Black Sabbath with Dio. I mean, Dio's great.
Hey, the funny thing is, as much as I hate post David Lee Roth Van Halen, I liked Sammy Hagar prior.
Yeah, on his own.
Yeah, I liked Sammy Hagar prior, but the combo did not work out.
But Miami was wild, man. People were, you always had famous people come in, man. And everybody would walk in there and they would say, "Who's Lou?" You know, there's tattoos by Lou. So that was the thing everybody said. And I was in there one day and I'm tattooing, my head's down, I'm tattooing away, and I hear this guy walk in, "Who's Lou?" And I'm like, "Man, who is this idiot?" You know? Like, it's the stupidest thing to say when you walk in, right? Every jerk says it. And I look up and it's Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, it's fucking Rambo, Rocky. There he is, just standing there, bro. And I stopped tattooing and got up and went over and shook his hand and just greeted him when
he said, "I'm Lou."
Yeah, no. I mean, I figured, damn, you know, there he is, fucking right there. I got to stop and shake his hand. And then I was busy tattooing, obviously. So he had just brought a lady friend in to get a little tattoo, and we had a back room. So my buddy Emerson took him back there in a private room and did a little tat for him. And then he said, "Well, what do I owe you?" And he goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's on me." He's like, "Oh, really?" And then just left and never tipped him or anything. He didn't give him nothing, man.
Well, there you go. He said it was free.
I was like, that's wild.
He said it was free.
Yeah.
Should have said $100.
I know.
Rocky definitely had $100.
I think so.
I mean, David Lee Roth only had 40, but
yeah. I mean,
so when
I was
you're
pretty shocked.
When you're in Miami, here's what I say. I say to people all the time, like about tattooing and tipping and all that, just to jump on that. It's just like, you should not expect a tip, no matter who the person is. And you should be thankful for whatever tip you do get, whether big or small or whatever. But you should just charge a fair price and be happy if they give you you say 100, you get 100. You should be happy with that 100. You shouldn't be like, "Oh, they only gave me 100. You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted more, you should have said more. If it's worth more, you should have said more, whatever. But that aside, this time of work in Miami, did you buy a car? Or you just had no car while you were there?
I mean, you didn't need a car on South Beach,
no.
man.
But if you wanted to leave the 2-mile area.
We had friends that had cars at some point.
But
I did have a car there at some point.
All
yeah.
Right. But you didn't have a motorcycle.
No.
Because that's a place to have a motorcycle.
Man, I almost that was almost the time that I would have had a motorcycle, because my buddy Emerson did a lot of tattoos on Warren Lane and Billy Lane.
Yeah.
At that time, and we had talked, and Lou had bikes, and he said, "Oh, we should get motorcycles."
I mean, that's
from
place,
Warren and Billy.
That's the place to have a motorcycle, man.
And it just never happened. And honestly, bro, if I had a motorcycle there, I probably would have died. It's amazing that I made it out of there alive to begin with.
Yeah, lucky. I mean, I got sober pretty young, and I had a motorcycle. My first street bike that I had when I was right out of high school, and I was still doing some drugs and drinking. I did try to leave. I did try to leave on this motorcycle when I was still. I thought that I wasn't tripping anymore. I thought that the acid had worn off, but as soon as the wind hit my face, I was like tripping again, and I just like rode right into a ditch. I just went. The road curved, and I didn't. I just went straight into this ditch. And it's like, and I thought it was, and I was so. Shortly after that, I got sober, and then I've had motorcycles my whole life, but I've been sober with motorcycles, and I've known a lot of people that. They're in the party scene and they're drinking a bunch and they're partying a bunch and they get a motorcycle and then you end up riding the motorcycle to the party and then you're wasted and then you fucking crash or whatever. So, I feel good. I feel like that's part of the reason I'm still here.
It's not a great combo. And
no.
Ben Nichols on Bike Riders, he always says we're cheating because we don't drink.
Yeah.
Because we're all sober. We don't drink when we're on tour, and every night, when he plays, everybody's buying him shots and drinks and shit. So he doesn't ever leave at 8 a.m.
But he's also really smart. He puts his bike at the hotel.
Oh yeah.
And then goes to the show to where he can get a cab or Uber or a ride from someone back to the hotel at night. Yep. He's like, there's only been a few times where he's like, hey, you're going to have to ride my bike back to the hotel or something like that. Something happens. But the few times that Ben does say, I'm not drinking tonight, that never works. That never happens. So after this Miami, like, how did you end up deciding the time in Miami was done? Like, how did that come about?
My son was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So in Ohio.
Yeah. Shortly after I got there in Tennessee. And then I had moved him up to Ohio, him and his mother.
So you were in Miami and the kid was...
When he was born in Tennessee.
So he was born before you went to Miami?
We made him before I went to Miami.
Okay. And so you're in Miami 7 years, this kid's growing up.
When I moved back to Ohio, he was like 4.
All right. So you decided it's time to be a dad.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So you moved back to Ohio.
Yep.
And what happened there?
Got a job at a local shop there that was some friends of mine at a 252 Tattoo. And yeah, just started raising a kid and being a dad and tattooing in Ohio. The traveling really slowed down a lot, and did that for, I think 252, we were there for maybe 6 years. And then we opened Tattoo Faction, Dave Wolf and I.
In what year?
2006.
2006.
But let me tell you,
almost 20 years.
So when I was in Tennessee, Dave was in Colorado. He was big into snowboard, and he was tattooing a little bit out there, but he was working at a snowboard place. And I said, man, you gotta come to Tennessee and tattoo. And he ended up coming to Tennessee and tattooing. And then I had left Tennessee. I went to Miami. I called him. I said, man, you got to come to Miami. And then Dave came to Miami. So everywhere that I tattooed in Tennessee and Miami, Dave Wolf had tattooed there as well. And then I would leave and I moved back to Cleveland. And I called Dave. I said, man, you got to come back to Cleveland. And he moved back to Cleveland and we worked at 252 together for a while. And then in 2006, we decided that we were going to open a shop together.
Very cool.
And that was the beginning of Tattoo Faction.
Tattoo Faction, one of the coolest tattoo shops anywhere. I love that I love that shop.
I love it too.
It's such a good layout, and it's so crazy when I go work there, coming from Elm Street to there, because it's like it's so big.
It is big.
There's so much room there.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous of how much room you have.
You can probably put 2 of your shop in there.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a, I mean, you got a good, big, cool setup with a good floor plan and a lot of good people. So how long was Dave Wolf stayed in Ohio with you?
He stayed, we opened the shop in 2006, and I know he must have been there at least maybe 5-6 years, maybe 7. And he decided that he was going to move to Colorado, and told me, I'm moving to Colorado. I'm going to go out there to Colorado Springs. I'm going to open a shop up out there. And we had a great split. There was no hard feelings ever, you know.
Well, he's got a good thing going out there.
And yeah, it was cool. And he went his way and went out to Colorado, and I stayed in Cleveland and kept running the shop.
Well, what year did you and Cindy meet?
We met maybe 96, 97 in Miami.
Yeah.
She was born and raised there.
I mean, and when did y'all start dating?
So I don't know what year she came back there, because she tattooed all over. She was in Denver and New York, and tattooed in Long Island. She had ended up back in Miami, and I didn't really know her other than she worked for Tattoos by Lou. She worked at one of the shops in the suburbs in Kendall, and she would come around. She'd come around the beach shop a little bit, and I got her to cover some shifts for me once, and then at some point I had done some moving around between the shops, and I ended up working out in Kendall with her, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So when you moved back to Ohio, she moved back with you?
Yeah. Which was funny, because I said, hey, I got a kid there. I got to go raise this kid. I'm moving back home. She was kind of like, well, can I go too? And I'm like, I don't know if she asked if she could go too. Yeah. She's like, well.
That's how we're going to tell the story. Yeah, she says, can I come?
And I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we moved back to Ohio.
You tell him, Ricardo.
Uh-oh.
You tell him.
Yeah, and she was a huge part in Adam's life, raising him too. And
well, she's been tattooing longer than us.
Oh yeah, I think 40 plus years.
Yeah, I'd like to sit down and have a talk with her about her tattoo history career, because she's got a pretty cool story, pretty cool lineage. I mean, she was tattooing longer than you. How much did she help you out in those years? Or just being around a badass female tattooers? There wasn't very many of those at that time.
No, there was a few at the shop, but you know, Annette LaRue used to come through there a lot. I just saw Annette in Pittsburgh. She used to come through there a lot.
We saw Annette in Japan.
Oh yeah, she said that at Moon Eyes. And there was a few female tattooers at the time, but nobody like Cindy that had come up in that era of the 80s with the crew that she came up with, you know.
Yeah.
With Peter Polis and that Peter Tattoo crew.
They got to make a movie about Peter Tattoo, man.
Yeah, the stories are pretty amazing. That was a different time.
Oh my God, they got to make a movie about that. They got to make. Could be so cool. It could be like it's got to be like Scorsese or something, like a Wolf of Wall Street version of.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I met a lot of other tattooers through her. That's how I met Angelo Miller.
Where was he at that time?
I think, Angelo would come down there and work at Lou's. I think Angelo had a shop in Wilmington at that time, Port City Tattoo.
When did he get, well, now we're spinning off, but he's been at Inksmith for so long now, I can't even.
Yeah, I don't even know. Well over 10 years.
I thought it was way longer than
I
that.
mean, it probably was way longer. You know how it is.
It's
A year. I say, oh, it was a year ago. It was like 5 years ago. But he's been there a long time.
Well, now you're coming up on 20 years of Tattoo Faction.
Yeah.
And you got a wide range of people working there. You got a good crew. You've got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You got some good eager young kids there.
Yeah, there's some, I got a buddy there of mine that I've known since high school, and we've tattooed together for 18 years now there. We worked in other shops. We've been tattooing together since I moved back to Ohio. Mike Hutton.
Yeah.
He's been there the longest. Dave Wolf's little brother, Dan Wolf, has been there since the opening of Tattoo Faction. And some people have come and go over the years. The crew now is really awesome.
Yeah.
Really awesome.
The vibe is good there. Yeah, it's a real positive vibe.
Yeah, they're all
people.
We say younger tattooers. A lot of them are in their 30s.
Yeah.
My son's tattooing now. He's doing real good. He's been on a shift as an actual tattooer for about a year and a half now. He's got a good
mindset. Got a good mindset for it. He's got good customer relation skills. He's super friendly, and I feel like I know he started tattooing like a little bit later.
Oh yeah, I told him, I said, "Oh, you're too old, man."
Yeah. And I was like, man, when you told me he was thinking about it, I was like, well, why didn't it fucking start? You know what I mean? Because my idea, if I could go back in time, I would be hounding the door at a tattoo shop to get a job at 16 years old.
Yeah, I never pushed it on him. It was his decision.
Yeah. But I think it's probably, looking at the way he's doing now, and I was just there 2 months ago or something.
Yeah.
We were tattooing side by side, and it was like super cool. And I was just like, man, I feel like this kid probably started tattooing at the right time, because he came to it when I'm willing to dedicate to it. I've tried other things, and I've know enough about tattooing. He's been around the tattoo shop his whole life, and he just he just gets it. He just gets it really well. And I feel like if he would have started younger, maybe he could have been like my dad owns the shop kind of mentality, which you've seen that plenty of times.
Yeah. He's got a great work ethic and drive.
That's because
I was really, I was not surprised, but I was really impressed at, like you're saying, man, his people skills and just his drive with the tattooing. You know how hard it is you pick that up and you think, oh, all right, I'm going to tattoo. And then you realize, oh, this is pretty hard.
Yeah.
And if you don't put that 110% into it and really attack it, it's difficult, but he went at it, and, he really put everything into it, and it shows, and he's doing really well.
I've seen a lot of young tattooers that in their first few months and first year of tattooing, that whenever you wipe and you see that you've done not the best line, or you shaded out the line, or you did something, or you fucked something up a little bit, you see that, and that kind of like, some people are like real sensitive to that, and they're like, oh man, I fucked that tattoo up, and they just beat themselves up over it, and they take it really seriously, and they try really hard to not do that again. In my mind, I'm like, hey, you're gonna fuck tattoos up. If you don't want to fuck anybody's tattoo up, then just stop now, because you're gonna fuck. You gotta. There's a certain level of learning that you're gonna have to do, and no matter how good you are, something happens somewhere, sometime. You know what I mean? Like, and you gotta be able I kind of embrace the idea that a tattoo is supposed to be handmade, so the little imperfections are part of the charm, kind of the idea. There's certain tattooers that are looser than others, and certain tattooers that are more meticulous than others. And I mean, I appreciate, the wide spectrum of that. But I feel like there's like a good there's like a good medium ground where you can like recognize when you fuck up and try to do better and not beat yourself up over it. But I think you got to have at least a little bit of that, like try. You got to really kind of care enough to try hard. And I feel like Adam he really he asks questions, he watches, he takes his time. He's real good with the customer. I think that's, like I said, I think it's probably better that he started later than earlier, which my original opinion was like, oh, he's fucking up. He should have started earlier. He's bullshitting.
Oh yeah.
But I kind of like changed my mind on that aspect of it.
I mean, he's gonna be 30 this year. I mean, he started at the shop again. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. It could have been more or less, but started at the front counter and worked his way through everything, and at some point approached me about tattooing, and I decided, all right, we'll give it a try, and yeah, he really attacked it, and it's doing good. It's really cool to be able to watch him tattoo next to all you guys. And I think one of the other things that he does that's real good is he gets tattooed by everybody that rolls through there. He gets tattooed by everybody that works at the shop, and he gets tattooed by all the guests, because it's the best way to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Is to get a tattoo from Mike Wilson on your forearm.
Yeah.
And you can watch that. That's like a master class at work. He's got a tattoo from you on his forearm. I think you probably did his first tattoo on his forearm.
Man, when I was working at the shop when I was young, like I got tattooed by every person that came and guessed. You know what I mean? It's just like, well, I'm getting tattooed. It's kind of like, and I did that until I had no more room. But one of the things I love about, Elm Street is people come and guest spot at Elm Street, and all the other tattooers at Elm Street will get tattooed. And there's been times where Tim Lehigh comes to work and he just is booked only tattooing people that work at Elm Street.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, fuck, I got to come more days now next time because I didn't tattoo any customers. But I try to have those that's the kind of people I want working for me, the kind of people that want to learn, the kind of people that want to get tattooed, the kind of people that want to partake in what we have to offer.
I mean, that's one of the best things about tattooing, right? Is working with other people, doing guest spots, being around other tattooers. I mean, we constantly learn. You never stop learning. I always learn some new trick from anybody that I tattoo with, even doing it for 34 years.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's always, you'll do something or somebody, you're like, man, that's a cool little trick. I never thought about doing that,
Yeah.
So you constantly grow, and then to come to places like your shop, and when you guest at your shop, you're not the only one guesting there. There's usually a couple tattooers there. It could be Tim Lehigh or Steve Byrne or everybody comes through Elm Street, man. Chuco and Tim Hendricks. And
I mean, we try to keep a steady roll. I mean, that's I think that's what keeps it fresh and keeps,
and that's kind of what Lou did back in the early 90s with Tattoos by Lou, and that's where I met Chris Garver.
Yeah.
And I thought it was wild that, Chris was pretty established up in New York at Fun City at that time. And then somehow Lou had that charisma to talk you into coming down there and tattooing and working there, so you get exposed to all these incredible artists. And I think that's how you get that motivation and that inspiration and drive, and you can learn all the time.
That's kind of my my adverse reaction to the private studio is that you're shutting yourself off.
Oh yeah.
From the experience and from the world. And I do think that there is some positive aspects to the private studio. Once you're established and once you have a big clientele and once you're doing bodysuits, you want to have this private room to offer these customers this certain style of tattooing. But at that point, you're kind of frozen in time, and I feel like the walk-in shop, the camaraderie of the guest artists coming in, different style of tattooers working side by side, the energy and the younger tattooers that I've hired over the years at Elm Street, they have like really, the biggest benefit they get is Scott Sylvia's. They get to watch Scott Sylvia tattoo. They get to watch you tattoo. They get to watch people come in and guest spot, and they see it, and their eyes are open to the world. They're not just stuck in a bubble. And there's other shops where there's like no guest artist, and there's only, it's like they're even if it's a shop that's open floor plan, they're still like, oh, consultation only kind of, it's like you're shut off to the world. You're not seeing a whole bunch of shit go on. If you've got 4 or 5 tattooers working in the room that all do the exact same thing, then you're just a snake eating the tail. You know what I mean? It's like, it's way better to have the chaos. The chaos is where new things collide and boil over. You want that. You want that shit crashing into each other and boiling over and foaming at the mouth. You want everybody to have this feeding frenzy on what tattooing can be.
That creates that experience, The tattoo's part of it. The experience is a lot more of it too. I think, the tattoo, the mark that you get, you always, that's cool, but you always remember like what was going on, what shop you were in, what happened that day, and the memory of it, and it's pretty awesome. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I think I do see a return to that mentality. I see just on Instagram, and I see shops that are now a common post that people are making nowadays. It's like, I got time tomorrow. Who wants to come in? You know what I mean? Like posting designs that, oh, look, a new design. Check it out. Who wants first come get it, And you see these people saying like, oh, when it used to be like, oh, my books are going to be open for this amount of time. You used to see that post a lot. Now you're seeing these posts like, oh, walk-ins every day, or maybe not at walk-ins every day, but like we do, but people posting like times available, booking now, blah, blah, blah. Always, everybody's hashtag books always open now.
Oh yeah.
When it used to be the whole, the books closed thing, or, taking consultations for possible future appointments. I see a lot more people going back to like, hey, I'm ready to work now, instead of like, hey, you can wait.
Yeah.
And I think the people that are hungry for it, that are clawing at it, are going to stay afloat.
I mean, that's a weird thing too, is, for us, I think the social media aspect of it, I think at our age, we're kind of young enough that we know how to deal with it, but we're getting older where we don't want to deal with it, to stay motivated like that, I guess, and have that presence. I feel like I'm always trying to stay afloat, and I think that's part of the traveling all the time is, your time, it's going to come to a point where maybe you're not going to want to tattoo anymore, or you're not able to tattoo anymore
as much,
whatever, however it plays out, so for me, it's always this, I feel like as soon as you're not out there at these conventions or doing these shows, you're easily forgotten, because there are so many badass young tattooers.
Yeah.
And they can do exactly what you're doing. And if you're not present out there, and you're not at these shows, and you're not doing these guest spots, you'll be quickly forgotten,
Well, I mean, you can just, I can just look back at my last 20 years, and see the people 20 years ago that were at the conventions, that were always at the conventions, that everyone knew, that had a line at their booth that nobody's heard from in 10 or 15 years. And young tattooers have no clue who they are.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of one of those common reactions is when a young tattooer doesn't know who so-and-so is. And the old tattooer's like, how do you not know who so-and-so is? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, young kids don't know who David Lee Roth is either. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a different generation, and those generations are going to come and go. And pretty soon, me and you are going to be that guy that nobody remembers anymore.
But I think for us, we give somebody an experience, you know. They get tattooed by you. That's an experience that they're not going to getting tattooed by anybody else. Coming to Elm Street and getting tattooed by you, that's an experience that they're not going to get anywhere else, you know. So we got that going for us, that we have something to offer, you know, a cool experience, and we can still do a pretty fucking good tattoo on these people. And I'm grateful that anybody wants to get tattooed by me. So I don't ever say no.
Yeah.
You know, Pittsburgh was slow. It was a little slow for me. I didn't have a lot of appointments or anything. And I was going to pack up Sunday morning and head out. And I had a kid come in the booth at 10:30 and
10:30
asked me for a tattoo. And I was like, I think I'm going to pack up today and whatever. And he's like, all right, it's cool. And I let him walk away. And I was like, I'm just going to fucking go get him and do this tattoo, man.
Yeah.
He wants a tattoo. I'm going to do it. And it was one of the coolest tattoos I did all weekend. He came over. He had some weird spot. I drew it on for him. And it was a great experience. And I'm glad I told him I would do it instead of letting him walk away, you know?
Yeah.
Because if you don't do them and you let them walk away, sooner or later, they're not going to ask you for tattoos anymore.
That cool tat you did on that kid somebody else is going to see it. Now they're going to want a tattoo from you.
Yeah.
So, and about giving the people the experience is I try to, I hope I'm doing a good job at it, but I try to cultivate that experience for everybody that gets tattooed Elm Street by whoever they're getting tattooed by.
Yeah.
And I impress upon the tattooers that work for me that that's a big part of the gig. You know, these people have a good time or feel treated or feel cared about, or this experience of them getting tattooed here by you is going to make them come back and make them tell people, and they're going to ensure your future well-being.
Yeah. And if you sit there and tattoo somebody with headphones on, listening to your music, not looking at them or talking to them the whole time, I think you're robbing them of that experience.
Yeah.
When I say that, I just saw some tattooers at the convention, headphones on, tattooing, not even talking to their customer.
That's not what
I'm like, man, what a terrible experience. You get the tattoo, but
yeah, I'm kind of known for making rules at the tat shop. You know, there's some rules at Elm Street.
You got good rules.
You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. You know, some rules are standard, like you got to be on time. You know what I mean? That's like the standard job requirement.
Very difficult for a tattooer.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, there's a lot of tattoo shops that don't have that standard. And, you know, I work for Richard. You had to be on fucking time. You know, it's a job. It is tattooing. It is art. It is cool. It is fun, but it's also a fucking job. So you got to fucking be here. You know, if you don't want to fucking be here, somebody else will want to be here. So I've embraced that. You got to be on fucking time to work. I mean, some people that think that's crazy, I'm like, good luck with whatever you're going to do with yourself. But, you know, I got rules like you can't play certain music at the shop because I think it's a bad environment and I want to keep it positive.
Yeah, and the music creates the vibe.
Yeah. And then there's certain, you know, whatever. But definitely you cannot wear headphones. You know, you have to go to the counter. When it's your turn to tattoo and the customer's ready, you have to go to the counter and say, hi, my name is John. I want to do your tattoo. You know what I mean? You got to go and put your best foot forward and give them this experience. You know, you can't just like sit in the corner, wait for the shop helper to make your stencil, have them send the person over to you. You don't even say hi. You just zip and kick them out. That's not the deal. You know, you can get somebody's and charging a fair price. I'm a big proponent on the fair price of tattooing. I think that overcharging, you know, I say it all the time, you can get a bunch of money from somebody one time and then never see them again.
Yep. Or
you can give them a good deal, a good experience, a good price, and make dozens of customers.
Yeah, have a customer for life.
And have a good relationship and give somebody a fair deal, you know, and just have some honor in it. You know, there's a lot of people out there that just try to milk it for everything it's worth. And I'm like, that is not a good long-term business plan.
I read something, an interview with Greg James A lot of people probably don't even know who Greg James is. One of the baddest tattooers
illustrator
ever. And maybe it was just an interview or something that they did on him, and he said, if you give somebody a good tattoo at a fair price, you're always going to be busy in this business.
Yeah.
And you'll have longevity. And he's still tattooing, as far as I know.
Last I heard.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time when I first went out to LA, I saw people with Greg James tattoos. Just,
I mean, he did a lot of tattoos on Motley Crue.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. So.
But I mean, there's a lot of, the local people that out there that have like full sleeves and back pieces. And it's just incredible that he was also kind of understated. Like he had a presence in the early tattoo magazines, but it wasn't like, he wasn't the Gilmani out there showboating everywhere. Not that that's bad, but you kind of had to know.
Well, Gil had Tattoo Mania.
Yeah.
And then Greg James. I don't know if that was Greg's shop. Robert Benedetti worked there too at Sunset Strip Tattoo.
Those are wild times of tattooing.
Yeah. I tattooed at Tattoo Mania in 95.
Oh, man.
For a couple days.
Crazy.
And it was wild.
Was Freddie there?
No, but Mark Mahoney was.
Mark Mahoney was there.
Yeah.
I mean, Freddie was there for some amount of time.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to LA wasn't until maybe I went in 96 or 97 or somewhere around there, and just going to look at that shop.
We were out there for a national convention, and I went out a little early and hung out with my buddy Frank Ball, and that's when Frank was tattooing at Tattoo Mania then, and I tattooed there for a couple days, and that shop did not close.
I mean,
Mark tattooed till 6 a.m.
But the perfect name for that tattoo shop. That was seriously Tattoo Mania.
It was wild.
Yeah, but Mark's one of those guys that doesn't start tattooing until 10 p.m.
Yeah. Maybe not anymore, but.
Oh, man. I mean, that's the Jack Rudy plan, too. Don't start tattooing until late after dinner. Yeah, pretty sad to hear.
Yeah, that was a bummer losing Jack.
Yeah, and
I mean, we lost a lot of good friends and tattooers over the past few years.
I think
it's always a surprise when we lose someone.
This last couple of years has been tough with a couple of our friends, like Tim Beck passing away, but we kind of, we were in contact with Tim and knew the struggle he was going through, and still was a surprise when he passed, because we weren't expecting it to happen when it happened, and it was rough. Even though Jack Rudy was older, he wasn't, nobody was expecting that. Nope. That was a shot in the dark, man. Just, I woke up to that phone call and was just like, whoa, no way.
Yeah.
So I feel like Jack probably had one of the biggest impacts on tattooing of any one person that in my tattoo career, just because he was at every show.
Oh, yeah.
And he was friends with everybody. He was, I really love that era of tattooing that was right before me, when, the Japanese tattooers and the black and gray tattooers and the traditional tattooers and all the different style of tattooers had no animosity towards each other. And they would all meet at national tattoo conventions and show each other what their new stuff they was working on. And everybody was feed off each other, and everybody was like, it was more of a community, but it was a smaller amount of people. So it's easier to have a community with a smaller amount of people. Nowadays, there's like these different factions of tattooing where all these people that do this style, they don't conversate with the people that do this style. And it's like,
I try to make an effort to talk to everybody now.
Yeah.
I don't care what they do, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's people doing amazing shit.
I don't care who's in the booth next to me. I'll talk to them and say hi to them. And it's all tattooing, you know? I mean, I feel more and more all the time that our world of tattooing is
shrinking, bro.
You know?
Yeah, shrinking. I can't really talk about tattooing nowadays without talking at least a little bit about the dildo, you know. And you said that you went to that Pittsburgh show and that it was like all dildos.
I would say 90%.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not going to say that in no way do I not say it's tattooing. It's tattooing for sure. I just think that, and if new school people and new tattooers get on the brand new hottest new train, I totally get it. But what totally fucking boggles my mind is when the old traditional tattooer like is using the dildo.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man,
it's not for me.
Well, and when I say this, I'm specifically pointing the finger at Chris Wynn. My buddy Chris Wynn should know.
Oh boy,
he should know better. This old man. I told him, I was talking to him the other day. I love Chris Wynn, by the way.
He's the best.
I love him, and he's an old tattooer. I mean, I don't know how he's been tattooing, how long he's been tattooing, but he's an old guy. He's our age, right?
Yeah.
But I told him, I was like, man, what are you trying to do? Were you trying to be some hip new kid? What is going on? You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna keep up with these new little hip kids. So why are you even trying? It's just sad. It's just silly. You just look silly as an old man with that little fucking dildo in your hand. You know,
yeah.
You just look silly. Just don't do it. But I had to at least talk shit about Chris Wynn a little bit. I love him. I was hoping he was going to be at West Texas this weekend, but he is not.
I think that's where we saw him last.
Yeah, I see.
That's where I saw him.
He's been to Dallas since then.
All right.
But that's where we like that time that me and you and him all hung out. And then he was.
I tattooed him there.
Yeah. What a great dude. So Chris Wynn, stay off the dildo, bud.
Yeah, stay off the dildo.
You're too old for that shit. You know, I also kind of partially subscribe to the can't teach the old dog new tricks thing. You know, I mean, to a certain extent, yes, you can adapt and adjust and mold to the times, but you can't just abandon your history. You know what I mean? That's what I
don't know, man. I feel like the tattoo machine.
It's the soul of the
one of the best things about tattooing. The noise, the buzz, everything about it. You walk into a modern day convention now, and you're like, damn, it's quiet. Nobody's tattooing. And you realize, well, they are tattooing. You just can't hear nothing.
I mean, we're addicted to that noise. I've heard that noise in my sleep for the past 30 fucking years. So
man,
it's a thing.
That was part of it. You walk in the shop, the machine's buzzing, smell of the green soap.
But aside from the superficial aromas and whatnot that you're gonna get of a tattoo shop, the fact that thing is just a throwaway item is what's sad to me, because you don't really care about your tool. It's just a little plastic made in China thing, you know. And I always go on these rants, and I always say it's gonna be in the garbage can in 2 years.
I mean, I can't imagine having a collection of dildo pens.
Somebody's gonna do it.
That you're just like, look at this collection, you know. I don't think you're gonna see a collection of those at the Lucky's Tattoo Museum.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, you might. I got a collection of old broken fucking flip phones. How many people have 100 broken cell phones that they saved?
This guy.
Well, in the hot off the press in the new news, I guess you've probably heard that they have halted the production of the penny.
Yes.
They have halted the production. They have not. There's no word on the street of whether they're going to decommission the penny, which has been in the works for over 10 or 15 years. There've been talks about what it's going to take to take the penny out of our currency and round all sales to the nearest nickel. So who knows when that's coming. But they have, as of right now, there will not be a 2026 penny.
And does this give you anxiety?
For those of you,
I don't know if people know,
for those
but
of you,
Oliver is a penny hoarder.
I'm a penny hoarder. Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna continue to hoard as many pennies as I can. Like now, I'm in like crisis mode, so that every penny I can get a hold of, I'm gonna get them all till the end. So we'll see what happens.
I remember one of the first times you got in my car, you were instantly picking through my change, pulling the pennies out of there.
Yeah, it's funny when I do that to people. People that know me just assume that I'm gonna take the pennies that are wherever I see.
Yeah.
But people, when I don't know them that well, I just start taking their pennies. Like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, you don't want these. And they're like, I do want them. Well, then I'm stealing them.
Now I see a penny and I pick it up and I give it to you.
I appreciate it.
So now I pick up all the pennies I see too.
I just told the story the other day. I was working at New York Adorned in New York City. Quite a few years ago, when Thomas Hooper and Timothy Hoyer worked there. And the second day I worked there, I worked in Timothy Hoyer's station, and he was off. And at his station, he had a jar of coins. It was a glass jar with a little lid thing. It's about this tall, and it was full of change. It's about 6-8 inches tall, full of change, all kinds of change. And at the end of the day, I got done tattooing. I took that jar and I dumped it out on the counter. And Thomas is like, what are you doing? I'm like, stealing all these pennies. And I just sorted out, took all the pennies out of the jar, put the pennies, threw them in my bag, put all the coins back in the jar. Now the jar is only half full of coins because all the pennies are gone. But all the dimes, quarters, and nickels are still there. And I put a little piece of paper with a note in there that says, penny thief has been here. And I stuck it in there and left it on the fucking counter. And it was pretty funny because Timothy was like, oh, all right. I didn't need those pennies anyway. Like, he used the coins for parking meter change, but the parking meter doesn't take pennies, so I stole them.
Unlike you, I hate metal money. And I'm not worried about the penny going away.
do. You know, we hang out quite a bit, and we entertain in a lot of commerce. We go into shops and stores and buy stuff and drinks and foods. And anytime you pay for anything, they give you your change. You just hand me the whole handful of coins.
I can't have a heavy pocket full of change.
I was like, I'll just take the pennies, but you just give me everything.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Hey.
Just so you know,
the least I could do.
All those coins you've given me are all in jars here. They're not.
I know. I just had this whole conversation with some of the guys at the shop about your penny hoarding. And we looked up what 1 million pennies was. And it's not. It would fit on this table, 1 million pennies. It's a pretty good pile.
Yeah.
And I decided that you probably have at least 3 million pennies.
3 million pennies?
Yeah.
People ask me all the time. I say, I have no idea. I mean, I have thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, when you made the move, you had to put them in a truck to move them.
When we moved here out of the fucking house, I had jars of pennies. I have way more pennies now than I did then. But I have these jars. They're like gallon jars and big liquor jars. And I put all these jars, I put all the seats down in the minivan, and I filled the whole floorboard with pennies. And it wasn't all the pennies we had. Like I couldn't fit them all because I had to put I put little pieces of cardboard between the battles so they wouldn't smash together and break. And I was like, had the whole minivan full of jars of pennies. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make one trip over, to bring them over, and then I'll come back, get another load or whatever. I'm in the driveway. I start the car. I put it in drive, and I start giving it gas, and the car don't move. And I was like, what's going on here? And I'm like, I'm fucking with the thing, thinking I'm not, and it's like, and I like start to move, and it's just like, and the car won't move. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I get out of the car, and I look, and the car is like pushed down on the tires. And I was like, holy shit. So I had to take half the pennies out of the car and then drive over here. So it ended up being like 4 trips just to bring pennies over, just to transport the pennies. And I was like, man, pennies they're heavy. You can't.
They're very heavy.
Yeah, you grab one gallon jar of pennies, you carry it put it in the car.
And when you have to keep the jar at a manageable weight.
Yeah. So I don't know how much money is a million pennies.
We looked that up too.
You don't remember?
But I don't remember.
Can we do some math?
Yeah, I mean, you can Google it. We looked it up, and it told you what it was, and then it showed
How much?
10 grand.
Yeah.
You think I got $10,000 in pennies?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I do or not,
I think so.
but I do have a lot of pennies.
I mean, I don't know what you're gonna do with them ever, but
Well, I just told my buddy Scott Harrison the other day. He was asking me about this penny thing because he was interested in what I thought because they're not making any more pennies, and I said, well, I'm gonna. At the end of the conversation, I was like, chances are, I'm gonna continue to hoard these until I'm either broke or dead.
well, when you commit to something,
Either one could happen.
You're in it for
any
life.
day now. So I could be broke or dead at any moment. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think they're gonna. I mean, obviously, I believe the goal, the major goal of the world of commerce is to eliminate cash and go to strictly digital and card payment only, which then they could still keep a 1 cent tally. But unfortunately, technologically, we're not ready to take that switch yet. And so they're going to continue to take cash and no longer have pennies. So they are going to have to come up with the system of rounding to the nearest nickel. So I anticipate that happens next year or soon after. So we'll see what happens.
well, it's coming.
There are a lot of businesses over the last few years that have already gone penniless. You've seen this.
No.
Oh, I've been to a place where they check out and they're like, whenever they give you your change, they just give you your change to the nearest nickel and they say we're penniless. They don't stock pennies in their drawer to give them out. But there's also a lot of businesses that don't take cash at all.
Which is wild.
And we do stand with Steve Byrne and say, do not ever support cashless businesses.
100%.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. Things change, whatever, over the years, but I don't know. I like you, we're the same age. Like when I grew up, your parents had a credit card, right, for
Emergencies.
a purchase that was bigger that they couldn't afford to do in cash.
Yeah.
Everything that you could afford, your grocery shopping and your day-to-day lives, you pay cash with,
Or a check.
Yeah. And I refuse, and I understand a lot of these young people have debit cards, and I'm sure I have a debit card, but I don't physically have a debit card, and I refuse to put a $3 coffee
Yeah.
on my credit card
It seems crazy.
when I have
$3
a pocket full of cash.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people just don't carry cash.
And I think I'm also a proponent of accepting whatever type of payment that they have.
Yeah, I take it all.
Why limit it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in business. I'm selling something. I'm going to take whatever you got.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have any money, I will trade you for something. I want to bring that back.
I mean, how are we going to buy Harley Davidson parts
At the swap meet.
at the swap meet if we don't have cash?
Yeah. The swap meet is like the bastion of cash.
Oh man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to bring back the barter. We used to have at Paradise. We had like a race board thing, and it said we will trade tattoos for, and then whatever you wanted, you would write on that board.
Nice.
So sometimes it'd say plumber. And then the plumber would be like, "Oh, hey, y'all need some plumbing?
Yeah.
What do you need?" And we're like, "Oh man, we need this." Well, okay. And then you do an eagle tat on him, and he'd fix the toilet or whatever the case would be.
I mean, that's great.
I put on there I got the idea from this guy in Dallas named Robert Hackney, who was an old time tattooer. He was friends with Ed Hardy. He had a shop in Dallas called Tattoo City, which is obviously named after Ed Hardy's shop. But he had a standing deal at his shop. Will trade tattoos for televisions. And he had in the shop, he had a wall of televisions. Like they're stacked on top of each other, old big tube televisions. And there's just dozens of them. And he would have them playing things. And, you know, he just collected, he just had televisions. And
That's wild.
And he had like, you know how you can like split the image?
Yeah.
Onto multiple screens. He would have like 6 TVs with one image split across them. And then he would just get these, each TV would play like a loop of something. Or he had, you know, those little TVs with the VCR combo on the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
He had a ton of those, and he would just put videotapes in each one and push play on all of them. They're all just playing different shit. So he's had all these TVs. And so I was like, man, I want to do that. So I will trade tattoos for...
I mean, it's brilliant.
And we just wrote on the board whatever we wanted to trade for. And people would come in and be like, people want a tattoo? It's like, well, shit, I trade you for this or for that or whatever.
I mean, Lou had a sign that said, we'll trade tattoos for gold,
yeah,
diamonds, guns, and other things of value.
I think we should bring that back.
Yeah. I mean, the board is slick.
I mean,
you can just write whatever you need.
I mean, gold is gold. Don't trade for gold for sure. You have to have some sort of way of measuring and knowing what this gold is worth, though.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, thanks for coming here, Greg. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Oliver.
And we'll talk some more shit the rest of the week.
All right.
We are going to very shortly. We will be in a heated game of cornhole.
Oh yes. I can't believe that it hasn't happened yet.
I mean, you've only been in Dallas a couple hours, but we
yeah.
I'm surprised we came straight here instead before throwing a game of cornhole.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cornhole boards are out there anxiously awaiting us to jump on them.
All right,
bud. Thank you so much, everybody. Remember, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things. And we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. Hey, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, guys. Click all those links. Push all those buttons because it really helps us out and gets us out there to more and more peeps. What in the Duck podcast is produced by Audra Cabral and John.com Niederkorn. Our sound, video engineer, and editor is Courtney, Junior Larkins. Initial audio video setup and intro music by Blake Balake Pinchon. And a big thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Y'all keep them coming. Email me any questions you would like me to answer to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Anchor Screen Printing. Anchor Screen Printing has been printing t-shirts and merch products since 1999. Anchor is the place for quality, small run items. At Anchor, every print is hand done by people who care about art. You can email anchorcustoms@gmail.com to talk about getting something printed for your company, brand, or shop. Anchor Screen Printing also has its own online merch store that sells Elm Street Tattoo, Cheap Thrills, Heart and Hand, Party First Safety Maybe merch, and much more. So go to anchorscreenprinting.com today and buy some cool shit. Or you can click the link provided in this podcast to shop now.